All right, and we are live. Hey everyone, this is Kevin, the Apptrepreneur. Welcome to the Apptrepreneur Show. This is our daily dose of gig economy, streaming wars, and whatever else we can think of to discuss. In fact, today is a particularly, I don't know what the word is. Is it spicy? Is it testy? This is going to be a very interesting episode because there's going to be some sensitive topics discussed. I'm not going to lie. Might lose some subscribers. Who knows? But if I'm going down, I'm taking someone down with me. So you there, I'm taking you down with me if we're going to do this.
Well, thanks. I appreciate being part of something.
Yes, I figured.
Even if it's the decline of our channels.
Exactly. That's where. So yeah, I don't. I'm kidding, folks. I was just realizing, like, hey, I'd like to do this topic with someone else. So I called Mark, and he said, "Oh yeah, sure, why not? Why not?" And so now we are here doing what we do together. But this is not officially a monthly rideshare podcast. In fact, I'm not even sure what the future of that podcast is now that I'm essentially doing a podcast every single day. So that's like an interesting question. So what happens when we all get together? Do we just change the logo for one day? Is it really that different when I'm having guests on? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I know it could just be Kevin's hosting special guests once a month.
Yeah, that could be it. That times change. You never know. Although I will say, if we do decide to end the podcast, we will do a proper goodbye episode. I always like closing things. For the time being, we're going to try with guests. So anyway, without delaying too much longer, let's start with our first topic of the day. And our first topic of the day, we're talking about Uber Eats, which has been in the news a lot recently, a lot more so than rideshare. And that's, of course, because people are actually using Uber Eats and they're not using rideshare. So,
Oh my goodness! My friend is freezing.
Oh, did you? No, you're here. Here.
You froze for a moment, but continue.
Well, okay. Well, anyway, I kind of discovered this topic at the last minute, but apparently you had already read this before. And let's correct this a little bit. And this is from Mashable. And see, this is why it's messing up because of the ads. And the headline is, "Pay a little more and Uber Eats will deliver faster." And I was of two minds when I read this headline, if it was what I thought it was going to be. First of all, what a genius way to price gouge people. And second, of course, is what a scummy thing to do. I expect nothing less from Uber. So you look at the article, and here's what it says on Mashable. If you've ever ordered a burger on Uber Eats and impatiently watched the app tracker as your meal was submitted, processed, cooked, and finally picked up for delivery, there's a new feature to speed up the process. The food delivery app added a priority delivery option on Monday. For an additional 99 cents to $2, you can make sure your delivery handles your order first before dropping off another order in the queue. It's supposed to guarantee anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes less waiting time. Now, here's how the faster delivery looks on the app. Your delivery will come to you directly after it gets picked up. You won't have to wait for other orders to get dropped off on the way ahead of your burgers. And of course, as you can see right here, it says priority, and they're charging an extra 99 cents for priority. Now, they also offer this. There's a no rush feature where if you're probably willing to wait a little longer, you will save 50 cents. And then there's standard, which has no change in price whatsoever. Now, here's the thing, Mark. I'm going to share a little story of when I was a 17-year-old. And one of my original jobs was delivering pizza for Round Table Pizza. And in a strange way, this system has been around forever. It really has, because you could see who was, if they were paying by credit card anyway, many people would give you a tip on the credit card. And you could see up front who was tipping on the credit card and who was not. And I'm not going to lie, I prioritized the people who I knew were tipping. I prioritize those people. It makes sense. They're giving you a little extra money. You want to make sure that their service is better so that hopefully next time they call, they're inclined to tip you a little bit more. So this is nothing new. But that was a personal choice. That was not company policy. That was just something I did. This is something that Uber is making standard as their app. It almost feels mafia-ish. Like, hey, you want that pizza a little bit faster? You maybe want that cheese to be nice and melted and not cold? Hey, but you pay $1. And then they charge $1, and the app will prioritize that order. So not only is that a little scummy, like you're definitely nickel and diming the customer, but of course there's nothing in here that the driver is going to benefit from this. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the driver gets nothing. So basically, they're being treated like an employee again, like they're being demanded by the head company to prioritize certain orders because they're making more money on them, but the driver isn't making more money on them. So basically, they're being an employee at that point. They no longer have, they no longer have the option to deliver how they want to deliver. A head company is saying, hey, you're going to deliver this place first because they're paying more money. But I'm a contractor and I'm not making that much money. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. They're paying us money, so you're going to deliver that first. Well, I thought I was independent, and So I don't know, Mark. You look at this, and what do you think of what Uber's doing here?
Well, my first thought is, now that you alienated all of the Italians in the audience with that terrible accent and pigeonholing of Italian Americans, just to make sure I distance myself from that.
Of course. Why not?
There are so many things that can go wrong here. So many things that can go wrong. First of all, I don't even think that Uber can back this up. As someone who has been on both sides of this equation, and what I mean by that, having been delivering and having been on the receiving end of this, we all know that, first of all, it really depends on where you're delivering. How often do we get 2 and 3 deliveries? Sometimes we do, but more often than not, I'll grab and pick one meal up and run out the door. So it really isn't guaranteeing anything. Now, I'm telling you that the restaurant isn't going to care. They're going to make the food the way they make the food. If someone has an order that comes in later, they're not going to make a priority on preparing the food. So that's not going to change. And for Uber drivers, the delivery people, we have to deliver the food the way it's going to make the most sense. If there's something that's 3 blocks away, and then the next one that I have in my car is 1.5 miles away, I'm not going to deliver the 1.5 miles then come back to the one that was 3 blocks away. That doesn't even make sense in routing. So I suspect they can guarantee what they want. I don't know if the drivers would even abide by it. Finally, as you said, who's making the money on this? Certainly not the drivers, and yet the drivers are the ones that are going to have to fulfill this contract. Once again, it comes back independent contractors, and yet we are expecting to abide by rules that someone else put in place, that someone else is making money on. And how is that being an independent contract? So all the way around, number one, I think it's going to be ineffective and inefficient. And number two, I just think that it's just a sleazy thing to do. And I think most of the time, it's not going to have an impact anyway. It's a money grab, and I don't feel good about it.
Well, one of the things that Postmates did, because I still occasionally do Postmates, but about 1.5 years ago, Postmates used to be where if you collected multiple orders, they would list the orders, and you could more or less choose which orders you wanted to deliver and in what order. And then at one point, Postmates changed it where they would basically provide the information to what they felt was most convenient for you, and you wouldn't even see the delivery information for the other orders. So you're basically following their lineup. So that's one of the ways that Uber might do it. They might actually remove the ability to see all the orders information, and they'll just give you the information for the next one they want you to do. Mm-hmm. But again,
I'm sure that there's delivery people out here that are more knowledgeable on it. I don't deliver in a highly populated urban area, and I rarely get multiple orders. I rarely get them. Usually I pick up an order, I deliver, and I get called back. So, there's perhaps I'm the wrong person to ask. regardless, unless that 99 cents is going to the driver, I don't think that it is a fair system. And it's just another one of those things when Uber has a tendency to shoot themselves in the foot. They have something good and they kill the golden goose. They did with the drivers and rideshare, and that's why after all these years they're still not profitable. Finally, they're seeing something that appears to be profitable, which is a food delivery, and they're going to mess that up. It's so clean, so simple. Why start throwing a wrench into it?
Yeah, the biggest question that I have about this is this option where you can wait a little longer for like a 50 cents discount, which first of all, 50 cents is nothing. But what happens like if you're like the first order and it's like, okay, I'll wait a little longer for my food and I'll save 50 cents. But then like 3 people pay the $1 to get their food delivered before that person. By the time you get there, it's pretty conceivable the food might be cold and you might have to nuke it in the microwave. Now, first of all, is that 50 cents worth saving at that point? And secondly, what does that do to the restaurant's reputation? What does that do to Uber Eats' reputation? Does that affect the driver's tip now because they're not getting warm food? I mean, there's so many things that could go wrong. And the thing is, a lot of people are going to say, hell yeah, I'll save 50 cents because unfortunately people, it's really weird. People who use Uber Eats a lot tend to be extremely cheap, even though they're paying on average 30% more for the food than they would have had they gone and picked it up themselves. But they're really cheap and they expect this high quality service. Well, they're obviously going to gravitate towards saving a little bit of money, but then the service is going to get poor and they're going to take it out on the driver and the restaurant, anyone but Uber Eats.
Well, here's the other thing that you came just an eyelash away from talking to, and I thought you were going to go there. What if everybody on that route pays the $1? We can't all be the first person. So what if everybody decides to pay, and now they're not honoring the contract?
Yeah. Well, at that point,
or are they just going to say one driver, one meal because everybody paid $1?
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to limit that because here's why. They'll just word it like everyone's getting a priority and no one's getting any less of a priority because they're all paying their $1. But then at that point, like there's kind of like almost a little legal loophole because it's like, but then they're paying for a service they're technically not getting.
Yeah. The second or third guy on that list paid his $1 and he's watching the driver make other stops.
Yeah. No, it's it is. Yeah. And that's because you can actually, well, that's the other thing though. They do let you look on the app to see the status of your delivery, but you don't see the status of anyone else's delivery. Oh, that came up too quick. Sorry.
No, you don't, but you can tell. I mean, it's pretty obvious if something is happening to your order because you see that car stop for 5 minutes. Right. Or if you see him, I was in, where the heck was I? I think I was in Jersey somewhere, and I ordered, and the restaurant was literally across the street, but it was a complicated street. It was like, the interstate was intersecting with the street that had a number of boulevards in between it and all this. And it just would have been very troublesome just to walk across the street. And I said, I'm not doing nothing but watching TV. I'll order Uber Eats. I mean, I probably could have looked out the window and saw the guy, picking up the food. I'm looking on the app, and I knew when the driver got there. And I could tell the driver was waiting and waiting and waiting. Now, if I would have seen that driver suddenly head 12 blocks in the opposite direction and then come back, it would have been pretty apparent to me that something was going on. And if I paid my 99 cents, I wouldn't be happy about it.
Right. No, I definitely hear you. So, well, anyway, I think this is a bad idea all around. But of course, Uber is going to do what they can to get as much pennies from people as humanly possible. That's what happened when you sell a premium service at a discount for 3+ years or something like that. But anyway, all of you folks watching at home, what do you think about this? Do you like this idea? Do you dislike this idea? Would you pay the dollar? If you are delivering for Uber Eats, like, have you come across this and how does it play off? We would love to know. So comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly.
And add to that, would they have a different opinion if the $1.99 was going in our pocket rather than Uber's pocket? Would that change your opinion?
Would that change your opinion? Yes, good thing to bring up. So yeah, let us know in the comments below. But with that out of the way, let's discuss the second topic. And the second topic is definitely the testy one that we kind of alluded to earlier in the video. So look, we just need to, of course, establish some very common sense things. Racism's bad, okay, folks? And I think you and I are on the same page that what happened to Mr. George Floyd should not have happened. And
yeah, I was just watching a new video popped up. It's so disturbing to watch. You know, it's almost one of those things that you don't want to watch because you just know it's going to keep you up at night. But yet, if you don't watch it, you feel, how can you not? I mean, this is clearly a very, you can almost say that was a historic moment, because what's happening in our country right now is not going to be easily forgotten.
It won't. Yeah, you're right. It won't be. And it really did force a lot of people, myself included, I don't know about you, to really kind of look at some issues that we'd kind of been brushing off for a while and realize that, yeah, we do need to change some things. We do need to reform. And of course, whenever something like this happens, companies will usually start making statements about how they support whatever cause is going on right now and what they're going to contribute to and how they are going to contribute to the solution. Now, you could, of course, cynically say that they're doing that because they want their business, but, you know, whatever the reason, it's nice. It's a nice gesture. But Uber, of course, had one. And while I actually think their email was, for the most part, you know, from a PR perspective, pretty solid, they did mention one thing that actually sounded like it wasn't going to work in the long run when you really get down to it, and might be problematic. And they have confirmed that they're doing it today. And that is that they are officially waiving delivery fees for restaurants owned by African Americans until the end of 2020. And, you know, I read this in that email that they sent, and I remember saying something at the time that, look, I understand where this mentality is coming from. You want to, you know, give back to the community. You want to help, you know, solve the problems. You want to show that you're on their side, and that's admirable. But I wasn't sure if this was the way to do it, because it's one thing to say we're going to make sure to hire more people of minorities. It's one thing to say we're going to give this much money to an organization. It's one thing to say we're going to look at our own policies and we're going to soul search and we're going to reform what we need to reform. But what they're doing here, essentially, is they are giving business benefits and prioritizing good deals based on the color of someone's skin, which definitely seems to go against what Martin Luther King Jr. wanted. So here's what it says. Restaurants owned by African Americans who have partnered with Uber Eats will have no charges for delivery until the end of 2020. The delivery service app announced the incentive amid calls to end institutional racism spurred by recent protests against the police officers who killed George Floyd, an African American. In an email sent to its customers Thursday, June 11th, which this is a few days old, so, you know, we're a little late getting to this, sorry. Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi said that the company is waiving delivery fees for Black-owned restaurants who support the community. The app will also highlight a list of African-American restaurants in specific areas to tap more customers. And he wrote, you know, Uber stands in solidarity with the Black community and with the peaceful protests against the injustice and racism that have plagued our nation for too long. My hope is that if each of us recommits to doing all we can to counter bigotry wherever we see it, the change will follow. Besides the fees being waived, Uber pledged $1 million to the Equal Justice Initiative and Center for Policing Equity. Khosrowshahi also committed to hiring a more diverse staff. I don't have an issue with any of that. But again, it has been brought up that this particular show of gratitude, or whatever you want to call it, is problematic because this is specifically saying like, hey, if your skin is this color, we will give you a discount. And that's legally not how it's supposed to work. And that's also not how racism works. Racism, that actually sounds very racist in some sense. Like, hey, because you're this skin color, we're going to either do this against you or we're going to do it for you. Eliminating racism is like everyone is treated equal. So that means it doesn't matter if your restaurant is owned by Asians or Latinos or white people or African Americans or Colombians. You know, we charge the same everywhere. But here's another thing that's interesting about this waiving the delivery fees, because Uber actually doesn't even get that into exactly what fees they're waiving. Is it just the delivery fee? Because if it is, that's like a $2 to $5 fee that's waived. It still gives the restaurant an advantage that people don't have to pay that $2 to $5. But is that it? Or are they also waiving the fees for all the other fees? Because Mark, you and I know, I'm sure you've seen my video, I'm sure you've seen the screenshots. Uber Eats takes a lot more than the delivery fee. There's like the preparation fee, there's the app fee, there's the partnership fee. There's a lot of fees, and sometimes those fees can add up to 70% of the order. And restaurants have been leaking those images, which show that this is definitely an issue. Is Uber going to waive all of those? Because if they're just going to waive that one little fee, they're not doing that much to help. And if they're going to waive all those fees, though, that is certainly not fair to everyone else. So I know this is a touchy one, but what are your thoughts?
There are a lot of different ways to look at this. You know, first of all, you could say, well, what is their intention? Where is this coming from? Is this coming from a place in the heart, or is this coming from a place in the marketing department? Are they doing this so they have fodder for a press release, or are they doing this because they feel sincere about it and it's making an impact? And a lot of people might say, well, it doesn't matter. It's bringing attention and it's making, it's focusing on an issue that is in the public mindset right now. There's just so many ways to look at it. I will tell you this. While you were talking, somebody might have seen me looking down. I wasn't ignoring you, but I was just looking. I said, wait a minute, I just got an email from Uber Eats, because I order Uber Eats a lot. And I don't know if you can see what that says. Oh. Take $20 off your next 2 orders. So Uber is always sending me deals like that because I order with Uber Eats. I haven't done Uber Eats ordering a lot recently, but as most of you know, I travel extensively. And when I'm on the road, I order Uber Eats quite a bit. So I'm always getting these. So I kind of feel like this is part of the nature of their daily business anyways, to give discounts. So in my mind, I feel like it's a little bit of a hollow gesture. On the other hand, you might say, so what? It's shining a spotlight on a good cause. But the thing that jumped to the forefront of my mind, how do they know what restaurants are African American? I sure don't know. When I walk into a restaurant, unless I happen to know the owner personally, which, you know, you do if you live in a community, I don't really know what someone's background is, what their heritage is, what their nationality is. I don't know all that. Some cases it's evident. You know, you go into a Greek restaurant and there's a Greek family that runs it, or an Italian restaurant, there's an Italian family that runs it, and you kind of know them and their names up front and all that. But if I walk into McDonald's, I don't know who owns it. I don't know if it's African American owned. If I walk into a Chili's and Applebee's, you know, the same thing. So what's going to happen now? Is Uber going to ask these restaurants to somehow register with that? I don't have the answer. I just think the whole thing it gets very convoluted. Now, someone on my channel asked, and I don't know if they thought I really had the answer. It was just a rhetorical question. They said, are they going to get themselves in trouble for discrimination by discriminating against all these other businesses?
Well,
what about, the Latino-owned restaurant? What about the Asian-owned restaurant? What about it? I don't have the answer to that. I would guess it's at people's discretion to run their business how they want. But it's pretty evident when you're doing that based on race or religion, you are maybe asking for trouble. So I don't have the answer, but those are the questions that come up. Now, as far as the where this is coming from, I don't have a real issue with it. If you want to, as I said, shine a spotlight on something that's happening, some societal issues, I can see the point. With Uber, I'm just not completely convinced that's where they come from.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it. I see that we're getting a lot of comments on this one. Unfortunately, I was babbling and I didn't have a chance to read all of them.
That's fine. We'll address a lot of these comments near the end. I will say one of the things when it comes to discrimination, I guess it kind of depends how they do it. Like, there's one way I can think of that they can do it that might not get them in trouble, and that is if they are still charging the delivery fee, but Uber's paying it out of their own pocket, so it's not coming from the restaurant. But that's still a slippery slope though, because basically their argument would be like, well, look, here's the thing. We're still charging the customer the delivery fee, but we're paying for that out of pocket. So competition wise, from the customer side, there's no difference. They're still going to pay. They're still going to pay it, but we're not going to take that. We're going to give that to you now. But that still creates another problem though. But then these restaurants are still getting a boost.
Okay, now let me ask you this though. Who is going to step up and take him to court and say, you illegally gave an African-American owned restaurant a break? I mean, no one's going to do that. They would look like pardon my language, they would look like the biggest douche in the media to say, oh, look what they're doing. They're cutting a break to African-American restaurants. I'm suing them. Nobody's going to do that. So they can pretty much do this with immunity.
Well, they probably wouldn't do this now, but this is going to be until the end of 2020, and memories, unfortunately, are very short. So, you give it a month or two, and what this kind of reminds me of? This kind of reminds me of, and it's a different business, of course, but it kind of reminds me of what the Alamo Drafthouse did with Wonder Woman a few years ago, and it was it wasn't supposed to be a big deal. I think it was supposed to be all fun, but they had a night where it's like, hey, we're gonna have a girls' night out at for Wonder Woman, and so there's gonna be nothing but female workers. Girls come along, leave the husbands and the dates at home. It's gonna be a girls' night out. I think it was supposed to be fun, but it quickly delved into this huge controversy. Like, well, wait, if I'm a man and that's the time I want to go see the movie, are you going to refuse my service because I'm a man? And one guy actually did sue them, I believe, and it settled. And basically, even though it was still a girls' night out, there were still men there because you can't actually say no. So I never underestimate people's ability to sue for this stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you on one hand that the public has a short memory. I don't think anyone's going to forget, nor should they, what happened to George Floyd. So no. I don't think this is going to. I know what you're saying, but I just think that this one is going to. It's got a shield of immunity built into it, and I just feel that this is personally. I don't care one way or the other because like I said, they would find some way to give me a discount, whether they said it was that or they said it's this. Give them their day. Their at the very least, someone's getting $1 million, and Uber might look like a bunch of opportunist hacks, but in the big picture, this is, in my book, this is an empty page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, Gig Life had a fun comment where she said, "It's a good idea in theory, but you can't ask all your employees their race." Which, I guess that's the other interesting topic. Like, long term, how does Uber look when they're contacting these restaurants and saying, "So, what's the race of the owner of the store?" It's like, how's that going to look just in general?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. Could you please repeat what you said?
Really?
What was that?
That was my phone. By the way, I have now reprogrammed my Siri so it speaks with a gentleman's British voice. So I feel like I have a gentleman's gentleman.
Oh.
Remember when Giles French, and you wouldn't remember that, who Giles French even is.
No.
But there used to be a TV show called Family Affair, and Giles French was the British gentleman's gentleman.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, anyway, that's definitely getting off topic. But anyway, so folks, I know this
what you asked.
Well, I was just curious, I don't have the Siri device. Well, my wife likes Alexa, but I unplug it whenever I get a chance. So anyway, folks, I know this was like a interesting one. I am curious what you think about any of this. Do you think Uber's got that shield of immunity? Do you think this is like a noble thing they're doing, or do you think this has problem written all over it? But do you think anyone's going to actually want to do something about it, considering the current climate we're at right now? We would love to know. So comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. And with that out of the way, let's talk about our third topic. And our third topic is about, it's about my favorite company, really, Amazon. and particularly my favorite CEO in the world, Lex Luthor. And Lex Luthor, aka Jeff Bezos, right now Amazon's definitely being looked at. Every year it seems like they're being looked at with a bigger and bigger microscope on all the things that they're doing. And they've had a lot to be criticized with how they've dealt with the C virus pandemic, their employees, firing protesters, and their monopolistic natures. And they want Jeff Bezos they basically want him to testify. And they want a lot of the tech companies to testify as how they use user data and what they do with it. And are they using that information wisely? And Bezos has actually resisted testifying. And when I say resisted, he's not even answering their phone calls. However, it appears that that's about to change because Jeff Bezos finally seems to be willing to testify about Amazon's use of seller data. And as you can see in the subheading here, last month it seemed Amazon didn't want its CEO appearing before Congress, and probably for a good reason. This guy, look, there's a reason I call him Lex Luthor. Just look at that. That looks like a guy who wants to take over the world. He kind of looks like the guy who, if Superman went up to him, he would just say, "I've got all the money in the world. I'm not afraid of you." So I can understand why Amazon wouldn't want him to testify, but apparently he's going to testify. Here's what the article says. So Jeff Bezos is willing to testify before Congress about Amazon's competitive practices. According to a letter obtained by the New York Times and several other publications, a lawyer for Amazon told the House Judiciary Committee Bezos will be available to take part in the panel's antitrust investigation into big tech. The hearing, which is slated to start in July, is likely to involve the CEOs of Apple, Alphabet, Facebook, and Amazon. And Amazon's quote, the letter said, Amazon is committed to cooperating with your inquiry and will make the appropriate executive available to testify. This includes making Jeff Bezos available to testify at a hearing with the other CEOs this summer. the House Judiciary Committee is likely to question Amazon about its use of third-party seller data. Now, for those of you who are not aware of what's going on, the controversy comes from the fact that Amazon appears to have been caught using third-party data. Like, you sell something on Amazon and it's successful. Amazon is being accused of taking that information and creating their own spin-off brand of what you're selling, and then, of course, pushing their own product. And I even encourage people to do this. Like, go to Amazon and type in batteries or pencils, and you're not going to find Duracell at the top. You're not going to find Sharpie at the top. Sharpie's a marker, actually. So if you type in markers or batteries, you're going to find Amazon Basics. For that matter, when you sell third-party on Amazon, they ask who your suppliers are, and they want you to provide that information. And people have been very suspicious of them because what happens is they will have a unique item they're selling on Amazon. And then one day they find the sales stop. And when the sales stop and they go to find out what's going on, Amazon is selling that very item from the same vendor at a cheaper price. And so that has raised questions about what is Amazon doing with this data. It definitely appears that they are using it to, undercut them. And by the way, this is not the first time Amazon did this. One of the biggest mistakes Toys R Us ever made was they originally, actually it wasn't even Toys R Us. At first it was Target. It was Target and Toys R Us. With Amazon was the number one e-commerce, well, they still are. They were going out to companies and saying, hey, we'll sell your merchandise on our site. And they said, hey, that's a great idea. I mean, we don't have to build our websites or anything. And then what was Amazon doing? They were studying the buying habits of Target and Toys R Us shoppers. So when it was time for Target and Toys R Us to branch out on their own and make their own websites, Amazon had that data. They knew what their customers were willing to pay and what they would do to pay for it and what deals they wanted. And they had all that. And they severely undercut them. And of course, Toys R Us definitely went under, not just because of that, but for a lot of reasons. So Mark, I don't know how much you follow Amazon. I'm definitely thinking I'm a little bit more passionate about this than you are. But you hear things like this, and what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think it's brilliant. I think he knows what he's doing because you can sit by and let other people testify and other people make decisions, or you can go in there and you can control and manage the narrative. Anybody who's ever watched Godfather 2 knows that when Michael Corleone got in front of Congress, he was able to manage and control the narrative. Now, I know I'm going to fiction here, but that's an easy way to illustrate what happens. And people like Bezos, they're going to be able to do a good job at doing that. The man is not an idiot. Now, the second thing I want to say, when their products pop up, that is something that has been happening in, for example, grocery stores for ages. People have been paying a premium to get their products on end caps, to get them at eye level shelves. The thing that's different is when I go to my local market, they're not duplicating and buying their Cheerios and then putting the local Cheerios guy out of business and replacing his eye-level Cheerios with their eye-level Cheerios. But the whole idea of putting their product line up above, as you say, some other name brands, I don't see anything illegal or immoral or unethical. It might seem a little seedy, but business has been done that way for a long, long time. Now, as far as their use of information, that has scared the daylights out of me forever. It's the reason that I don't have a Facebook account. It's the reason that I don't do a lot of social media. I keep my social media basically to one Twitter account and then my YouTube. And even that is a tremendous amount. So their manipulation and their use of personal information troubles me more than the way they use it in order to conduct their business.
Right. All right. It's interesting that I never really thought about about the grocery store analogy, because you're right. A lot of grocery stores do have their own brand of, like cereal. Like there's, do you want Cheerios or do you want Tastios? Well, I would argue that one of the differences, like a very key difference, is that when you go to the grocery store and you go to the Cheerios section, you see all the different variations of Cheerios, and you can kind of pick and choose, like, okay, is it worth saving $1 to get the lower brand as opposed to paying an extra $1 for the known brand? Whereas with the Amazon website, they literally bury the competition. Let me see if I can kind of show you what I'm getting at here. And so we need to stop sharing this screen, and we have to share this screen. So let's go to let's just say batteries just overall. So let's see, the reason. Okay, so you see, like, here's the Energizers, but you can see they're sponsored. Otherwise, these would not have been here. And for some people, if some people have like the list set up, I don't know what happened there, sorry, where, like the items go down, then these Amazon batteries bury all these in the second or third page, which some people never even get to the second or third page. So unless you pay them money, they can certainly bury your product. And
so what do you think the upshot, I guess, is? Do you think that Bezos should testify or shouldn't? Because that's really what we're looking at here, right? Well, that's when all this will come to light.
Well, he if it were me, like if I were Bezos, bottom line is, yeah, it's probably wise for him to testify so he can control the narrative. And the unfortunate thing is, I don't necessarily think Congress is well equipped to ask the right questions. And I think, by the way, that's one of the reasons.
Some of them are.
I think that's one of the reasons, like, he's willing to do it, because he saw like the whole Mark Zuckerberg grilling, if you will, and it wasn't much of a grilling. Mm-hmm. It's pretty clear that most of the senators didn't know how Facebook operated, and the ones who did were so extreme in their thinking one way or the other that it like I don't know why they were even asking the questions, to be honest. I don't want to single anyone out, but so I think it's wise for him to testify, but I wish we had more competent people asking questions, because how many people in Congress, for example, have that Amazon seller account, and they were selling a unique item that came from, and then they find out like a couple months later that item stopped selling because Amazon went to their vendor and basically bought a bunch of that product for a much cheaper price, and now are undercutting them. Like, how many senators actually know that happens in all this?
I have nothing to say. You probably hit the nail on the head with that one.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, folks, we are going to end that topic. What do you think? Do you think it's wise for Jeff Bezos to, do this? Testify? Do you think maybe he shouldn't? Do you think Congress is going to ask the questions? And what do you think? Do you think that Amazon is stealing data? I would love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. And let's see here. We are at 44 minutes. Should we do the real hot topic issue?
We got 10 minutes.
We've got
Mickey's
10.
Sitting behind me. Mickey's right here.
He's ready. We should tell Mickey what we think about this, and we'll kind of just jump straight to it so you can understand. But yeah, Yeah, people are calling for Splash Mountain to be changed. Now, let's stress once more. Obviously, racism is bad. We definitely don't agree with it, and what happened to George Floyd was horrible. But one of the things that's definitely been occurring is I don't mind introspection on how we deal with the police and everything, but sometimes I think we're overreaching a little bit too much. Like we're overcompensating. And Song of the South has always been a problematic movie. So problematic that Disney has never officially released it on DVD or VHS in the States, although I have a bootleg DVD, so it's not exactly the most difficult film to get. And Splash Mountain has been a iconic ride at Disneyland. You go to Disney World quite frequently, don't you, Mark?
Yes, I do.
So I guess I should first ask before we get too far, would Splash Mountain make your top 10 rides at Disney World?
Yeah, it's a pretty good ride. I would say if let's not say Disney World, let's say Magic Kingdom. Yeah, I would say the three mountains at Magic Kingdom certainly make my top 10.
Right, Space Mountain, Thunder Mountain, and Splash Mountain.
Yeah.
So, and Splash Mountain is just really popular. The line is always long. Even when it's freezing, there's usually a line for Splash Mountain, which kind of goes to show how much people love it. It's like 20 degrees outside. They're still going to ride Splash Mountain. But it's based off this movie that Disney, frankly, likes to pretend doesn't exist, and the movie is problematic. And as we do a lot of, we start looking at us as a society and how we view certain things, and we're now reevaluating whether or not we should air Cops or PD Live or Paw Patrol, I guess. And a lot of people there's a petition going on to change Splash Mountain, to remove the characters. Now, before I get into what their solution is, because it's actually not a terrible solution, I don't think Splash Mountain, the ride, is problematic. I mean, it is based off a movie that's problematic, but they really went out of their way to kind of almost divorce the ride from the movie. There's no Uncle Remus in the ride. There's no Johnny in the ride. Many of the songs which were sung by happy slaves do not appear. Well, they aren't slaves, but happy plantation workers. They don't appear in the ride. And when you start removing elements like that, what do you have? You have a ride about a rabbit and being chased by a fox and a bear. That's pretty much what you have. So I don't think the ride itself is problematic, but now because it has this connection, people just want to, rebrand it altogether. Now, before we talk about what they want to rebrand it to, which I actually do think is kind of genius, what do you think about the ride itself? And do you think the ride is problematic because it's based off this movie, or do you think the ride does a pretty good job divorcing itself from the movie?
Well, I mean, there were a lot of things in movies of the 20s and 30s and 40s and beyond that were very racial. I mean, in Dumbo, they had the two crows, and one was actually named Jim Crow. I mean, that's really in your face, right? Mm-hmm. But as you said, there is no reference to Uncle Remus. So what it becomes is a tale that Uncle Remus told. It's a morality play is really what it is. And it's how the rabbit, how he fools the people who are chasing him through reverse psychology. And at the end, people are happy and they're cheering and they're singing songs. Right now, I do not see anything that anyone would find offensive if they didn't watch the movie and make the connection between that and Uncle Remus. So, having said that, and maybe I don't want to jump ahead of what can step on your toes, but having said that, I mean, Disney has a history of tweaking things that they feel are going to be problematic or are changing with the times. A perfect example is what they did with the Pirates. And instead of now having the women in the town that they just pillaged being auctioned off, They have people's possessions being auctioned off. Instead of shouting, "We want the redhead," is now one of the pirate auctioneers saying it's the rum that they want. So it's a historical thing that Disney does. They have changed rides, every ride you can imagine. They've changed and added things to Haunted Mansion, which is, a very classic attraction. They've changed pirates. In my mind, I think that I don't see the racial implications there, but I don't have a big problem with them changing it either because, I like the ride, but I'm not in love with all the singing and dancing in the riverboat. A change might be good. It wouldn't bother me that much.
All right. Now, what people are suggesting, and it actually makes a lot of sense when you really get down to it, is they want to change it to the Princess and the Frog, because in the Princess and the Frog, there's the bayou and, the lily pad. So there's like a water element to the Princess and the Frog. And it's like, well, if you're going to change it to something, that does make a lot of sense. Although I will say, I don't know if Princess and the Frog would fit with the whole critter country theme. So maybe they could do something like Zootopia. I don't know. But the big question is, will Disney do this? Because I think Splash Mountain comes up for debate at least once every 2 years. At least once every 2 years, someone kind of points out that, hey, that's based off that movie that nobody's seen, but it's really problematic, so we should change it. But when you look at just how big that ride is, because it's not just like changing the characters. You got to get rid of like the Briar Patch, and maybe even like the top of the mountain has to be changed, because that probably wouldn't be themed very well with Princess and the Frog or anything. So it would cost a lot of money to retheme this ride.
Unless they do a real crummy change like they did with Guardians of the Galaxy in California. That was the most hideous change when they took the they didn't even change the shape of the building. They just stuck a bunch of Tinker Toys on it and called it Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, although I will admit, I do like the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like it's way more intense now. But you're right. When I look at that thing, it's like that. It looks like a hotel. It looks like a hotel. Also, this is like a little fun story. I'll always resent them for changing it a little bit, because when I worked at Disney and my parents came and I took them to Disneyland for the first time in a while, they had never been to California Adventure, and we're driving to the parking lot, and my dad sees the Tower of Terror and like the burnt out thing, and he said, "Oh, look, honey, that building burned down." And I had to tell him it was a ride at that point. But it kind of goes to show how clever Disney really was with design. But you look at the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's like that's what was kind of neat about it. It's like, okay, when you looked at the Tower of Terror, it's like, okay, it actually looked like a hotel, so it didn't look out of place, even outside Disneyland. But that space thing, it is pretty ugly. I will admit. So
I think where they're missing their bet with the Frog Prince, and I'm surprised they didn't do this instantly, is just open the restaurant, for crying out loud. It's so obvious. And they have, 4 parks in Florida in which to do that. Why they have not yet opened a restaurant is beyond me. That's the whole theme of the movie.
Yeah, I do not know either. It's really, really strange. So anyway, I would hate to lose Zippity Doo-Dah. I really do love that song. And I actually, here's an interesting story. I actually me and my wife watched Song of the South fairly recently, because it had been in the news, and she'd realized she had never watched this movie before. So she wanted to watch it. And I'm like, okay, well, keep in mind, we'll talk about this. And afterwards, she said, it was cute. It was not great. It was cute. And she's like, but I loved Zippity Doo-Dah. Like, that was just movie magic. So I hate to, and I kind of feel that way with the theme park ride. Like at the end, when like they're all on the boat and they're singing that song, I kind of feel like that's theme park magic, if you will. And I would hate to lose that. Now, one thing I will add, just so that we can end this on a this topic on a very, very humorous note, if you will, because people wish that Disney would just apologize for Song of the South. And technically, they did apologize for Song of the South. This is an official sorry board game with the Song of the South characters on it. So I think this is as close as you're going to get to Disney apologizing for that movie.
You know, I don't know. It's kind of weird to expect people that were not even born when the movie came out to apologize for it. That strikes me as weird. But you know, I don't know what it's like to go through the Black experience, so I'm not gonna take a position. I always thought stuff like that was kind of peculiar.
And as a film fan and historian, I don't believe in censorship. I don't believe in editing. I believe you should contextualize things, but I kind of think that when you hide things, it makes things worse than it is. And one of the things about the Splash Mountain controversy that's interesting is, since a lot of people have not seen the movie, they're kind of just taking people's word for it. And I know someone who has not seen the movie, did not know there was a movie based off of it, and honestly asked, what's racist about that ride? It has a bunch of singing animals in it. And you actually have to get into a history lesson before they even realize what the problem even is. And that I don't know. So anyway, we don't normally talk about theme parks on this channel, but we're both big Disney fans, and Splash Mountain is such a huge iconic ride. I kind of figured we'd like to at least discuss it a little bit. But I'm sure whatever, if they decide to change it, it'll still be the same fun ride, and the retheme might not be bad. I mean, I still like the Guardians of the Galaxy ride, even though like the outside, as you said, was a plaster job.
I've never been to it.
Oh,
I've never been to the California. I love the Tower of Terror. I think it has overtaken Haunted Mansion as one of my very favorite rides at Walt Disney World. And so I'm glad that they are keeping it and having Guardians of the Galaxy be its own complete thing over there at Epcot. Right. Why it fits in Epcot, I don't know, but nevertheless.
Well, that's just another thing that, and I know we're kind of getting to another topic here, but I don't think Disney's themed lands mean anything anymore, because it's like they have a Star Wars land now, but then you still have Star Tours and the Star Wars Hyperspace Mountain in Tomorrowland, which, by the way, I warned my friends of this. When Frozen was like on top of the world and they were saying, oh, Frozen's annoying me right now, but I can't wait for Star Wars Land. I told my friends, watch it. Because if you think Frozen's annoying at Disneyland, wait till Star Wars gets a hold of it. Like, it's going to be.
I always think they overdid it with Frozen, though. They jumped on that Frozen bandwagon. Who knows why they decided Frozen was going to be their pet?
They decided it was going to be their pet because it made a lot of money, and everyone loved it. And look, it was a Lion King level success. I mean, I even had to explain to some people, and they said, "Let It Go" is a horrible song. It's like, no, it's not. It's a great song. You're just tired of hearing it. And I can tell you this with certainty because I remember being in 1994 or 95, whenever it was, and Hakuna Matata was everywhere. And oh my gosh, I couldn't stand it after a while. But then, at one point, Lion King got so overbearing that it's like, I honestly said, this is the worst thing Disney's ever made. And
they took the best attraction at all of Epcot, maybe other than Soarin'. They took the favorite Maelstrom in Norway, was already the most famous ride, the most popular ride, like I said, with the possible exception of Soarin'. And then they sliced it. They didn't even use originality. They kept the same track. All they did was stuck character. They took Vikings out and put snowmen in. I don't know. It just seemed to me so hack. I wish they just would have started from scratch. If they had to give it its own ride, be nice and give it its own ride.
Well, that's what Disney does. I mean, they decided to update It's a Small World. Let's put Disney characters throughout this thing, and it's like, okay, look, it's probably not that annoying, but at the same time, it's like, I talk about taking something that's not about Disney and making it about Disney somehow. The whole concept of It's a Small World is we're all the same, and it's a small world. And I mean, aside from the fact that the song gets annoying, it's really poetic when you really stop and think about it.
Annoying.
It's a little annoying. But you know,
Is it as bad as Hakuna Matata?
I don't know if it's as bad as a Hakuna Matata. Well,
But you'll never forget, a smile means friendship for everyone.
Exactly. So anyway, so normal with that out of the way, yeah, you know the drill, folks. We'd like to know your thoughts on Splashman and all that stuff is. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and flame responsibly. Now, we normally spend this portion of the show to answer questions and stuff like that, but surprise, surprise, not a lot of people joined us for this one.
No.
This is pretty much just you and me hanging out right now and doing it publicly.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, we did have
There'll
Joe
be the replay.
came in and Gig Life in here. And if anyone wants to ask a question within the next 30 seconds or so, you're free to do so. But otherwise, this might be it for today. So, but you know, hey, Mark, it was fun to have you. Like I said, I can't think of anyone who I'd rather torpedo my YouTube career with than you.
Well, likewise, my friend.
So anyway, folks, that I don't see any questions. That seems to be it. So, you know, this is Mark from Mark's Travel Time, and check out his channel, Mark's Travel Time, and Average Me. It's still Average Me, right?
Still average me.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've got a great and do you have any idea what a hodag is?
No.
You don't know what a hodag is? You got to go to the Average Me channel and find out what a hodag is. You'll love it.
I will consider doing that then. And so you can also check me out at The Failed Journalist and the Apptrepreneur vlogs. And well, this was a fun, and I'll see you tomorrow with another episode of the Apptrepreneur Show. So take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.